Hey guys, welcome to Nomads Nation Podcast, episode 12, and today I'm with Edward Wang, the founder of Urbancred. Edward, how you doing today?
Good, glad to be here.
Hell yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on. So, some backstory, I get a lot of questions and comments on the YouTube videos, and I respond to every single one of them, and one comment I always get is just they're upset because they want to try on a bag before they buy it, right? And then as a sub question of that, people will be like, hey, where can I try these bags on? And then people will be like, hey, why isn't there a bag store in my town or here or there? And just sort of on that note, on top of it, I've always had kind of this dream, maybe pipe dream, maybe realistic dream, we'll see, to have a Nomads Nation retail store of my own. And then we connected. Actually, I found Urbancred. I don't remember how I found you guys, but I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I reached out, and here we are. And today we're going to kind of talk bags and retail. And, on that note, Edward, tell us, what's Urbancred? What are you guys doing out there?
Yeah, I think we actually met on Tinder, so it was like a really romantic kind of thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Tinder.
We stuck left. Urbancred is essentially a curated buyer shop that focuses on curating a collection of high quality gear. They're functional, they're design focused, and they fit a certain aesthetic. So we cover anything from bags, home goods, and travel accessories. Anything really just for kind of that guy who lives in a city, who's always on the move and going from point A, point B to point C. So that's
awesome, dude. Is that sort of like your target customer then? Is sort of like male, urban, sort of, on the go, or is it the carry community? What sort of a audience are you guys appealing to at Urbancred?
Yeah, we can go deeper into it later, but we kind of focus. It's tough in business, from my experience, it's tough to kind of focus on one category of product. Mm-hmm. So we kind of try to, instead of just being a bag store, we're more of a all-inclusive kind of experience where it kind of focuses on not really just a male, it's just whoever is really into that kind of lifestyle.
For sure.
So kind of like a lifestyle brand. But
lifestyle is the right word for sure.
Yeah, but based on people who visit and shop, it's really mostly guys.
Yeah, I mean, I get to look at our data for the Nomads Nation YouTube channel, and we started off 95% dudes and 5% women. That ratio's changed a bit over the years, though, because I've been noticing, there's been more and more interest for women in the carry community, and I think that we're now 25% women, and we get a lot of comments from the ladies out there. So shout out to all the ladies in the carry community. But are you seeing that sort of change as well, Edward? Well, actually, no, let's take it a step back. So for Urbancred, you guys are just an online retail store at this point in time, or have you opened up a shop yet?
So we started off online. We did a pop-up last year, and we're prepping to open our retail in September in Brooklyn, New York. So that's exciting.
Hell yeah, dude. Congratulations. That must be really, really exciting. And what are some of the brands? So obviously with the Nomads Nation brand, we're focused on, a lot of bags, so what are some of the brands that fans of Nomads Nation might see either on Urbancred website or in person at the store?
We're always trying to look out for new brands, but it kind of falls into two categories. We have tester brands where we try and see people resonate with them, and we have core brands, which are the brands that we always work with. We have a long-term relationship with, and the core brands really just revolve around Coto Bell. We have Able Carry. We stock some Peak Designs, Nomadic. Belroy, and those are kind of the core. We have some Black Ember as well, and then the other category we kind of test and feel. We like to work with some Japanese brands, some smaller brands, just to kind of keep it fresh. But that's kind of generally the idea of give you an idea of what we offer.
Keeping it fresh, I like that, and those are definitely some great brands across the board. But let's double click into the kind of the business side of this, because like I said, we get these comments on the channel hey, why isn't there a backpack store where I can get all the where I can test out all the brands that you just mentioned? So what's it like to try and develop a relationship with them on a retail perspective, because I know what it's like on the affiliate side. You know, we do all our reviews, and if anybody uses the first link in the description, they get it at the best price, and we get a little kickback, right? So the affiliate side I've been doing for a long time, and I know that it's pretty inclusive as to where if you want to be an affiliate with a brand, it's usually pretty simple because it comes at no extra cost to the brand. Usually they might have to pay a little bit more in software costs to get you on the affiliate software, but really, if you want to apply for an affiliate program, I'd say 70 to 80% of brands just like apply. We'll approve you right away. And then there's about the 20% of brands who are a bit more, let's say, selective. GoRuck, for instance, is a very famously selective in the affiliate sort of community, where they want to work with certain partners that they know will send traffic to them and hit maybe X amount of sales. But that's the affiliate side of things. What's it like on the retail side of things? Because I imagine it's a little bit more complicated.
No, we just like go out for drinks and like smoke. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome, dude. Count me in.
Yeah. No, we it's pretty straightforward. A lot of it start off with like cold calling, emails, but it's really very business, very formal kind of relationships.
Now let me ask, like, is there like a central platform? So like with affiliates, right? We'll have like a central platform called ShareASale, right? And ShareASale connects us to Nomadic, right? So we have like that middleman in that essence. Now we can reach out to brands directly. We do cold outreach all the time to try and find new partnerships, new affiliate opportunities, get new gear sent to us. But is there anything like that when it comes to retail, like a platform or something that can connect you with brands?
So a lot of brands work with a lot of platforms that you're talking about. They act like a middleman, but they're kind of like they act as a filter. So then when people apply for that platform, you need to provide your business information and prove that you're a business. Maybe some of them require you to have a retail location, and then to prove that, and then that will give the brands like, okay, these guys are serious, or oh, this guy has a business, rather than just kind of like fishing it out, see if they can or can't. But a lot of brands do kind of just do direct. So if you contact them directly, they'll be down to work with you. But it just depends on a lot of different factors, and people are all like, the expectations and their requirements are all different. So
for sure, like give me an idea. Like, all right, let's say if I wanted to start, because a lot of this call is like me trying to educate the community, but also educate myself, and also maybe do some market research to open a Nomads Nation store at some point in time, right? But like, give me an idea, like what are some things, like let's say I wanted to open a Nomads Nation retail store and I wanted, air products in there, right? Like, what would be some things? Go on.
Yeah, I can run it down for you. This is what's going to happen. You're going to go out, you're going to call these guys, half of them, well, let's say you're not Nomad Nation. Let's say you're just like a rando, right? Half of them are going to reply. Other half, they're going to reply and they're going to ask you for whatever. And then you're going to reply, and then half of those guys are going to reply. And that half is going to be willing to work with you. And then once you get those, they say yes, you got to upfront like a minimum, right, per order. Some of like maybe half of that require a minimum of whatever, 1,000, 2,000.
Sure, you're just working your way down that funnel, right?
You gotta narrow down to what fits your business and what fits your partnerships, how it works out. And then once you get that core product, then you just try to work with those. And I think ideally within like 2 years, you'll know, okay, some of these products will work, some of those won't. I'm going to cut those out. Maybe half of those are cut out. And then you keep looking to fill that other half, and you start building the other half and another half. You know what I mean? So when you're let's say you're working with a brand, and we're just going to say hypothetically you get a new deal with Evergoods. Actually, what I want to know is like what's the MOQ, the minimum order quantity you gotta buy for these on average, right? I'm sure it varies from brand to brand. Yeah, it's so varied. It could range from no MOQ. Some brands like some smaller brands, if they aren't as big like Bellroy, they're bigger, right? But if you work with like a smaller indie brand, like they're more willing to work with you on like a no MOQ. Maybe like if you want to buy one of each, that's okay. Whereas cool. If you go into like Bellroy and the bigger boys, right, then they require like, hey, they probably have their own like order platform, and then you go on, there's a minimum. They'll have like a rep. Some of them may have someone who works in-house that you communicate with orders. And then going deeper into that, some of them may offer net 30s. net 60s, which is basically like you get to get the product first and then you pay them afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that also requires like a history of like payments. So it's a lot of goes into it, but it's again, it really does vary. It depends on the brand.
Now, you've been doing the online portion for Urbancred for a while now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's the difference then from your perspective as an entrepreneur? Like, why is there opportunity in retail versus just doing it online? Because it seems like, online gives you a lot of freedom. Online gives you a lot of, and you're not paying rent. You don't have to pay on-site employees, so it seems like it's adding additional complications. Do you think that then the benefit though outweighs the cost potentially?
All right. For the people who are listening, Aaron, that's a good question. That's the logical answer is not to open physical retail. The only reason I'm doing it is because for me, it was a dream of mine to kind of have something physical and to be able to interact with customers. And there are definitely pros and cons to like a physical location, right? You can you get feedback right away. You get face-to-face. You can use it for like marketing reasons, or you can work with other people. I think like the main reason though to have a physical retail is to show brands that a lot of brands prefer not to work with other seller websites because it cannibalizes their own sales. So they prefer to work with like people who have physical shops. So when you see online like Air or whatnot, they have partners and stockists. They're all physical, mostly all physical shops. So
Interesting. So like a brand like Air, hypothetically, and that makes sense because I'll look on like Huckberry, for instance, and there's no Air products on Huckberry. I don't even think Rush Faster stocks Air. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I know that makes sense that Air putting their products on other people's online websites then creates more competition for them online when they would just rather have their Air customers go to the Air website, right? But I can see the advantage then as to where if you're like, I got a spot in Brooklyn, and people are going to be walking through and swinging by, it's free marketing for them as well. So it's sort of a win-win in that perspective.
That's pretty much it, actually. Yeah. I think it's different when it's more international, whereas because international markets, people are different. So working with a distributor or internationally, or working with an online store like Rush Faster in Australia, for example, they can do online, but just because they understand their market better, and international shipping sucks. I think that's kind of like the difference. But at least domestically, brands prefer to have to have control of the market.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're based in the States. I'm in the States right now. So yeah, and that's why I could imagine like in Hong Kong, there's Suburban, which is just like the backpack mecca of the world, and they got all these backpack brands, and it's unbelievable what you did. I mean, if anybody has the chance when they're in Hong Kong to go to Suburban, and you're a carry enthusiast, warning, you might go and you might never leave because it's huge, and it's just amazing. Shout out to Greg from Suburban. He's been on the show before. I get that, like wanting to have that because it's just such an amazing feeling to be around all these products, and it's so inspiring. But talking to Greg about that, the retail part, it's not enough always by itself. You need the online part of it as well. Do you think that the sales then side is actually more based for the online stuff, and like you said, the retail and just being sort of the marketing angle, or are you hoping it's sort of even across the board between both platforms?
I think ideally you'd want it to at least break even,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I was talking with a friend, and then how she doesn't sell bags, but she sells like home goods. And then how she did was the complete opposite of what we did. She did physical retail first. And then she kind of blew up, and then she started working on online. So it really depends on the product. It really depends on what kind of industry you're in, where it dictates what kind of path you do in terms of like online, or is it physical, is it online,
How does that actually work then? All right, so because you got the physical store and the online store, and the physical store is in Brooklyn. Do you have a warehouse in Brooklyn as well? Like, where do you store the things that you're stocked up on?
We have it in Queens, so it's not a big space, but just enough to hold our stock. Yeah.
Yeah. So you keep your inventory there, and then inventory is like a whole other game, and I'm learning about this all right now with the launch of Firo, and cash flow on top of it is this crazy other element that you always have to keep in mind. So let's say somebody comes into the store and they're at the Brooklyn store and they're like, "Hey, I want the Able Carry Max," and it's like, "Ah, crap, that's at the Queens warehouse." We just like run over real fast and grab it and bring it to them, or you just like, "Yo, we'll ship it to you online."
It depends on what the customer wants. So we probably, I think the most important thing is to give customers options, like just enough options. So just maybe 1 or 2 options or 3 options. Like we can ship it to you directly. You can come back and then it'll be here ready for you. Or if you live close, we can deliver it to your location. Those are kind of the options we would offer. But yeah, it's just related.
I mean, it's interesting too, like with the carry community. I mean, it's such a growing community. Backpacks are such a growing niche. This awesome EDC and travel gear and the premium market. I mean, it's just growing across the board, and I'm hoping that this means that there can be more retail stores that like a Urbancred or like a Suburban. But I don't know. Do you think that there will be more stores that are doing this sort of lifestyle stuff via retail, or is it we're just not there yet?
I think I'd like to see more the merrier. I think it's these kind of stores, or at least for guys, is very sparse. It's, well, at least, yeah. I mean, like bags in general, I think could cover all people, but like mostly, like we talked about, it's like 80% or 75% guys. And I think having a shop that kind of caters to that would be really cool, or just in general, for guys. But I think just the retail space, I mean, not the retail, the real estate space is like wonky. The economy is kind of wonky, and it's just like, not even talking about politics, is like it's kind of like can I curse on this podcast?
Fuck yeah, you can.
All right, okay. Yeah, it's like a shit show, kind of like what's going on right now. After COVID, everything's like the recession, and so it's probably in the short term, it's probably we won't see a lot of this. Even like from a business point of view, I always like to see people talk about business and startups and just like to encourage people to do it. But I think just because of what the state of the economy and what is going on now, a lot of people are afraid to kind of take that first step, which I don't blame them. It's running a business is tough, and like financially, I have kids and stuff, and it's like, it's worrisome, I always have to think about like the next day, if I'm doing the right thing. There's a lot of pressures. So I don't, in the short term, I don't think there will be a lot of stores like this. In a long term, we'll have to see. It just depends on, at least in New York, real estate's so expensive. It's going to be tough to be able to see these kind of cool stores pop up.
Were there any others? Like, because actually, I want to talk about like different markets, because I think it's a really interesting conversation. But like, before we do, like, have there ever been stores that you've seen that cater to lifestyles like this that maybe get flown under my radar? Like in the New York region, probably.
New York. Yeah. I forgot the store name. It's like Hatchet & Co., I think. It's like an outdoors shop that offers a lot of like outdoor bags, but they kind of dabble into kind of like streetwear sometimes too, which is kind of interesting. They've stocked a lot of cool Japanese bag brands and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Air just opened up their shop in New York, which we did like a walkthrough video through that. And then
Peak Designs got one in Manhattan as well now.
Peak Designs, yes. And then Frauenraven has a bunch of stores, or REI, the classic Nordstrom. Yeah, but like Dispatch, that used to be there, left. Ministry of Supply left during COVID. Man Portage, the shop closed, I think. So a lot of bag brands during COVID left, which is a really big shame. But yeah,
Hey, could be a bit of an opportunity for you though. So we'll
stay
see
closed. We're gonna take over now.
The Urbancred domination. But like on that note of like markets, because you're coming from New York, and you're from New York, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
So born and raised, Queens, right?
Yeah.
Cool, dude. For those who are listening who don't know, I have an obsession with New York. It's just like my favorite place in the freaking world. I fly from Hong Kong to New York a couple times a year. I always stay in New York. I spent a summer in Dumbo. I'm always jealous of people who get to live in my favorite city.
It's your second home. It's your second home, dude.
It is my second home. Absolutely. I got a dream to live in Brooklyn one day. It's just my spot. I just love the Brooklyn vibe. But what's like the carry scene like in New York? Because I'm coming from Hong Kong, right? I've been in Hong Kong for 8 years now, and out of anywhere that I've been, I think Hong Kong is like the strongest bag game in the world. I mean, everybody has a backpack, right? Because we don't have cars. We're relying on public transportation. We're walking, 3 to 4 hours a day some days. And Hong Kong has Hong Kongers like to look good. They like to look fly. They take care of themselves. They're really well put together, and backpacks are part of that, dude. So over the past 7 years, it went from I'd see some nice bags to I'm seeing Airs and Bellroys. Mystery Ranch runs Hong Kong. I don't know why, but that 3-day urban assault from Mystery Ranch, every other dude in Hong Kong's got that backpack. That's just the trend right now. So it's just so cool to see Able Carry too. Able Carry being a Hong Kong company. I'm so happy for Able Carry because the local economy in Hong Kong is supporting them, and I'm seeing so many Able Carry bags in Hong Kong. A lot of, I never know how to pronounce this, Arc'teryx, whatever that freaking French brand is.
I just call it the fancy bag.
The fancy bag, yeah. So a lot of the fancy bags in Hong Kong. So, and it's just, I'm seeing a lot of these brands every now and then. Black Ember, so it's all there, and a lot of that has to do with Suburban. I think being on the ground, 2 retail locations, giving people the opportunity to go in store, test these bags out. So, but I'm curious, what's it like in New York in the bag scene? Because I think that more densely populated urban areas are more likely to see these kind of bag brands. Is New York the same?
I think majority of people in New York run Herschel or some random bag. I think in New York, I think the biggest, the most I've seen from the carrier space from bag nerds, we know this, that, and this.
Yeah.
We see a lot of Air here. We see a lot of Bellroy. And some of the other bag brands we don't see much of just because I just think it's really expensive in New York City. So people aren't able to spend that much. But based on our shop sales and data, it just seems to be, I think a lot of people do order. And a lot of people really, really like the Able Carry, and then they also like the Coda Bell stuff. So it's just, it's hard to say because New York is such a melting pot of different backgrounds and cultures.
Of course.
But from personal experience, from being on the street, I see a lot of Air, Bellroy, and then from sales, I see a lot of Coda Bell and Able Carry being sold. So, yeah.
Coda Bell's an interesting one. Where's Coda Bell based out of? Do you know?
Yeah, space. Their bags are so cool. They're based out of California, dude. So.
Cool. It's one of the brands that I get so many requests to review, and I haven't had the chance to review any of their gear yet.
Oh, well.
I'll swing by Urbancred and do a little on-site review. But no, I've gone into Suburban at Hong Kong and touched their stuff, and that space sling that they have is fire, dude. So I see them a lot in Hong Kong, but I didn't know they were a U.S.-based company. So Coda Bell, if you're listening to this, send me some bags, dude. Send me some bags. But so that's interesting on New York. I mean, like I said, I'm there often, but I've seen bags here and there. I caught an airbag. I see a lot of Peak Design in New York, to be honest. I think Peak Design is just kind of like a U.S. brand in general, and it's just so common for photographers to want to carry a Peak Design. So I think that's sort of an easy one. But what about outside of New York and Hong Kong? I love talking geography and demographics and where do you think, because obviously you're opening Urbancred in New York, so you think that it can do well in New York. What are some other markets? Because to back it up, fingers crossed, a lot of the questions that I get is why I wish there was a bag store where I live so I could test this bag out. I'm like, cool, where do you live? And it's Minneapolis. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if a bag store could survive in Minneapolis or not. I'm not sure how strong the carry community is. What are some other markets that you think might be able to support a carry store? Because I think there's a few that could do well if it was done right. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Are we talking about internationally, or we're just talking about
Let's start with the U.S. first. Actually, open the board. International.
I think it just depends on just how many people are in the city. If you're in a big city, it's obviously the easy answer is yes, probably. Just because, you'd have the traffic. The problem is just people. Generally, they buy one bag and that's it, right? And then that's kind of going to be the bulk of your sales, right? The one bag people. I mean, the one purchase, right? Who would just buy one bag, compared to like us, where we buy like 20 bags and just don't know what to do with them. So then, if you live out in like the middle of the U.S., right, traffic and the population is going to be much lower, so you're going to get less people purchasing. Then you're going to have to rely on online sales. But then you could do that, but you'd have to just stay online. You can't do like retail. It just doesn't make sense, because retail relies a lot on like local populations. So like, Rush Faster is just based out of Australia. They focus on the Australian, demographic, but also just recently, or these few years, opened up to worldwide. You have Bag Creature in, I think, Singapore. And that's pretty big. And then Japan, we don't have to talk about that. They're like, the bag-centric Asian culture place to be. China, not so much, but Hong Kong is probably the place is a little bit more fashion forward.
Yeah, well, Japan versus Hong Kong is an interesting conversation. I'd put Seoul in there too, because I think Japan and Seoul are a little similar as to where, I've seen an airbag or two in Japan and in Seoul, but they're bag crazy. They're fashion forward in that sense, but they usually stick to, like, in Japan, there's a lot of Japanese brands, So from my understanding is like, the more Western style brands, maybe the more brands that we review on Nomads Nation, right? They're less popular in Japan, but they got their own ecosystem out there, Like you said, you're getting these up and coming Japanese carry brands, and you're trying to bring them now to New York, And I think that's an interesting opportunity as well. That's why I like the Perfect Bag YouTube review channel. Shout out to Clint. He does a lot of these like unknown Japanese bag brand reviews and stuff, and I'm like, what is that? So freaking cool, So there's sort of like this regional differences where Japan's kind of got their thing. When I spent 5 days in Korea, when I was in Seoul, like the bag game was pretty strong, but like I didn't know these brands, dude. And I'm always like this with bags. My wife was always like, you checking out other women? It's like, no, I'm seeing what bags are being worn. I swear to God. So I'm always snapping my neck like doing this, but I saw a lot of good, cool bags in Korea. I don't think I saw a single brand that I knew though. So it's still interesting how these different countries like are maybe they're bag enthusiasts. They had a lot of nice bags in Korea, but they weren't brands that I was quite familiar with.
Yeah, I think Japan, Korea, Korea's a good one actually. The Japan and Korea, they're very they purchase a lot of their own products and their own brands. I feel like they have enough brands where they're like, oh, this is way cooler or more functional or just as functional as the Western brands, But I definitely see a lot of shops. When I look at shops, I think there's two different types of shops. There's like the shop where you kind of sell stuff, right? And then there's the shop that's called like a brand, right? And the differences between them is just, the shop is just maybe sells everything, whereas the brand focuses the purchasing of product to a specific persona or like a type of style. And for Urbancred, that's kind of like what we kind of hope to achieve, in the future or on the way there. But I think Japan has a mix of both, and they're all kind of focused on their own people, the requirements, the style, the design, the functionality of the Japanese people, and same thing with Korea as well. So that's why I think like for them, they're like, okay, like I like Japanese culture, or I like my own people's like design style, and if it just resonates with me, and I can talk to them if I have customer service problems. Whereas like if you wanted to like more like American military, like go ruck kind of style, you can still get that in Japan. But it's just they have more options there.
Yeah, yeah, it's just really cool to kind of like see the different ecosystems and different cultures. I just love to see the way the different places do it. I think back to like which markets could maybe support like an actual physical retail store in location. I mean, I think in New York is a no-brainer, especially from the U.S. perspective. I always thought that like there's a big carry community presence in Austin. I always thought that like a retail spot in Austin, like like an Urbancred or a Suburban, could do well. Never been to Austin myself, but I'm on Carryology every now and then, and there's a lot of Austin, San Antonio stuff going on, and Chase Reeves is kind of out there, and there's they do meetups sometimes in Austin. So I always felt like if there was another location that could potentially hold a retail store in the U.S. for the carry community, it would probably be Austin.
I think, what's interesting that you mentioned that is because I think no one has touched Austin because I think Huckberry is based out of Austin.
Ah.
So if someone were to open a shop, it would probably be Huckberry, I feel like.
But Huckberry doesn't have a physical presence anymore, right? They're all online?
Yeah, they used to have one in New York, but it closed during COVID. So
Where in New York was it?
I want to say Lower East Side or East Side or something like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know Huckberry had a store there. I think Huckberry has like a warehouse in Seattle as well. I mean, Huckberry is a really interesting brand for me because I follow them like just from like a business perspective. I'm like, how are they doing? And like they seem to be doing pretty well. They seem to have a pretty big team, and yeah, they're killing it. So it really shows that the blueprint is there for a retail store. Like, I mean, I imagine you watch Huckberry pretty closely. As you're sort of trying to. What does Huckberry do right? Like, and Huckberry blows my mind too, because like their SKU game is crazy, and they're in apparel, and like apparel is a whole different beast of retail. Like I'm only learning about e-commerce now as I'm launching Firo, but I crush a couple e-commerce podcasts a week, and like I'm learning so much. But like one thing I've learned is apparel is one of the hardest e-commerce industries to get into because the return rates are so high. Everyone wants to buy clothes, try them on, send them back, and then also so many sizes that you have to keep in stock in terms of like men's size and women's size and small to triple large. So what do you think Huckberry is doing so well? How are they crushing it so well right now?
Well, I think there's like two things that come to mind. I think like I mentioned earlier, the difference between Huckberry and Macy's is that Macy's sells a lot of stuff, but Huckberry has like a brand image, right? They have a focus. They have like you feel like, oh, you resonate with Huckberry because Huckberry, when everything that they do, everything that they produce, YouTube and such, or even like newsletter, they're all like for a specific type of person, and that's what sets them apart compared to like just a other shop. And then everything they stock, whether it's apparel, home goods, bags, and you could see like bags aren't like a huge part of Huckberry. They sell a good number, but it's not like it doesn't overtake another category. It's all kind of pretty balanced. So in that aspect, they have a good balance of SKUs and category and product. They do marketing well. They know who their target is, and they know how to focus down on them. They do marketing really well, just like producing great video content that's really interesting, and they sell. They're able to, because they have like a big presence and a big following. They're able to do collabs. They're able to work with other brands that want to work with them. So they have that strength and flexibility at this point. And I think that they came from a point where there's two guys, finance guys. They put like 10K in each, and then it was only recently they took on like funding, like outside funding. So that's kind of like the dream kind of like for business owners, even for myself. So
of course, yeah. I mean, bootstrapped it. I mean, that means they kept their equity. Hopefully they had a nice little dividend when they got the outside funding, and now they've, got some capital to actually work with. But I think that your analysis of what worked for them is so correct, because I've never bought anything on Huckberry. I just kind of like, they're in my business sort of like circles that I'm following and stalking, let's be honest. Yeah. And you're so right about their marketing game, dude. Well, actually, what I love about Huckberry, what's so cool is like, it feels like it's a curation brand. Like they're so curated as to where it's like, you live this lifestyle where it's like you're kind of like a bearded hipster who likes a little sophistication.
In his wear. You go hiking, but you don't exactly stay home. Yeah,
exactly. Like that's what and that's what Huckberry caters to so well, and their content around that, like, it's not my vibe because I'm not much of an outdoorsy dude, but like I'm a little bit more on like the techie side, I think. But their newsletter is so good. Like it's so good. I love reading it.
No, I hate it. That's what I mean.
You hate it because I hate it too because I'm a little jealous of it, honestly,
exactly.
because you can see how much time they put into that newsletter to curate things, and it's not just product driven, it's so lifestyle driven. Hey, check out this article about this quirky travel destination, or check out this guide for how to make a Manhattan cocktail, and it's like, they're so honed in on this lifestyle element. And that's really interesting, just to kind of observe and see how well it's actually been working. I think their YouTube videos are great as well. So that marketing side, and they're just sort of like committing to a avatar. That's the word that I was looking for, like an avatar of a customer profile, and just drilling that in. It's proven very effective for them.
Yeah, I think Huckberry is like the one company I hate talking about because they just do it so well. So it's tough, but yeah, that's probably why I hate them so much, because they do it so well. They do everything so well and to the T.
I mean, but like within that, there's not a lot of Huckberries out there too, so they have sort of a, I don't want to say monopoly, because it's not, we're not dealing with like multi-billion-dollar corporations here, but in essence, for that sort of thing, like they definitely have done quite well in terms of like curating an audience and keeping them engaged. But there's not a lot of Huckberries out there. We've got, sort of Suburban and what was the Bad Creature on the Asian side of things.
Yeah. Rush Faster.
Rush Faster is killing it in Australia. Yeah. They just came into the U.S. as well, so stepping on your turf a little bit.
Yeah. I gotta talk to them about that.
Stay off my turf. New York's mine.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good opportunity for Urbancred, dude. So I mean, I'm wishing you guys the best with everything. Where in Brooklyn is the store opening?
It's gonna be in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I want to say on Noble and 42nd or something like that. It's somewhere near the water. So
when choosing a retail location, what goes into that? Like, why'd you pick that? And especially a place like New York, where I'm at, like you said, some of the highest rent prices in the world, especially commercially speaking.
Yeah.
What went into that decision to choose that location?
Like when I talk to people, and when you look online and like how other people pick their store locations and stuff like that, they say, I spent like 3 years or 5 years looking for the right location. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's bullshit. You can probably find something real easy. No, like you just look around. But I think the thing is, like, there are great locations, but I think the right location is just hard to find. And I think like the things to keep in check is just like cost, location, and that's really it. It's just those two. As long as they're like a good balance of each other, then I think it's a good opportunity to go forward. And like when picking locations, I think you have to be in a mindset that you have to commit. You can't like say you're gonna go somewhere. You say, like that's $5,000 a month, and then this is this and that, and it's a great location, everything fits. But I'm kind of wishy-washy about it. And because that happened to us like a few years ago, we found a really good location, a decent price. And we're a little wishy-washy about it, and then they rented to someone else.
Got snatched up.
Right. So, and then it happened again for this same spot, this area. There's another spot right next to this that was empty, and then we wanted to grab it. But again, we're kind of like second thinking ourselves, because it's a big commitment, But we let it go. Someone snatched it up, and we're like, fuck,
Not
like
making that mistake
tables,
again.
punching bait. No. But luckily another spot was available in kind of the time we're moving in. They said that, hey, I was just kind of going around talking to some shop owners, and then I spoke with one. They're like, yeah, we're planning to leave summer, so if you're interested in taking over the lease, we can kind of talk something out. So that's kind of what happened. We got lucky, basically.
One other cool thing I think that a physical location opens you up to, that you can't do just online very well, is sort of events or community building in that sense. And we chatted about this briefly, Edward, in a different call that we had. But, what sort of opportunity do you think there is for like events with a retail store like this?
I think that's one of the main benefits of having a retail, and I think there's a lot you can do. That's kind of our goal. We'd love to. Our thing is that, for me, I think in the business, it's a two-way street where they help you, they provide some stuff, gear, images, and whatever, help you get started and keep their site running and stuff. Whereas the flip side, as a retailer, your goal is to sell product, but I feel like personally, your goal is also to showcase the product, let people touch and feel, and just kind of give the brands you work with a little more exposure compared to just having them work by themselves. And that's kind of the benefits, right? That's why people like Air, they go to Nordstrom. They have a partnership with Nordstrom because Nordstrom has such a big footprint and so many people go through there. So I think that's why I think the physical retail is so important for us, for people. And then that kind of leads to events that if brands want to open up like launch events, or they want to work with us to do like a limited edition release, or they want to do or we want to do like a show and tell or interview or something like that. We have that kind of location to kind of play around with. And then it's also good for us to reach out to fans and customers, not just fans of us, but fans of those brands, to have a spot where they can come in and they can just like nerd out, right? When other people don't get it, So it's just kind of like a spot to kind of like therapy, you just come in and you just let it out and then just go home, tell your wife, I feel so much better. I don't have to talk to you about it. I have a guy, his name's Bob. He works at Urbancred, and I talk to him about everything. So.
Shout out to Bob at Urbancred. Thanks for being our community psychiatrist. No, I definitely feel that way. Like going to Suburban in Hong Kong, like I'll just go and just touch bags for an hour. I'm just like, oh god,
de-stress, right? There you go.
It really is. And so I understand why people, other members of the carry community really want that, and because there's something just different about when you get to touch a bag, or there's a bag that you think that you might like, and then you kind of just play like hell no, dude, that was not what I was thinking of. So, but you brought up something interesting too, where you're like, people like to come in and touch the bags. Retail is such an interesting play these days because people aren't always buying in shop. They might go to a shop to like touch something, and then they'll go to, let's say, Ablecarry and buy it online, right? So how do you sort of balance that as to where you want to provide that service, urbancredpsychiatrist.com, but also you also want to get that sales without also stepping on the foot of the brand that you're working with. You don't want to be like, yo, don't buy this on Ablecarry, like buy it from here. Is that a fine line to sort of play with there?
It's tough because, like I mentioned earlier, like you're trying to help them to kind of showcase their brand a little bit. But on the flip side, you're right. I think at the end of the day, the business is a business, and we got to make sales. So I mean, for us, we try not to push it too hard. We just like, hey, we have it in stock. We ship out in the U.S. It's much easier for you to get it from us, and then you can get it in conjunction with some other products on our shop. So that's kind of our thing. But if they want, hey, like they're like, we had a customer that came to us like, hey, this so and so brand had a discount on their website. Can you honor that? And I'm like, if you really want to shop at their website, and you get a discount from them, just feel free to go. Other people are like, hey, thanks for letting me try your stuff, but I really want to support the brand directly. I mean, it's not a big deal. If you really want to do so, we're happy to kind of direct you to that place. I think it's just for us, it doesn't really matter too much, really, just to break it down, because we still get sales. It's not like we don't get sales, So it's. The balance is really just to let the customer choose.
I like that because you could be in a situation where you might be more aggressive and be like, well, no, or like, hey, you should buy it from us. But I think it's really about building trust and building goodwill, because if people feel like they're being pushed too hard, it's just not going to create a great relationship, and they're not going to want to go back to Urbancred for shit, They're like, screw it, I'm just going to buy it online next time. So if you may have lost that sale that one time, because somebody wanted to support the brand, well, they're going to come back in and try something else. Be like, I want to support Urbancred this time. So it really is building trust and building relationships in that perspective. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's totally like dating. You're gonna go to a brand, you're like them, and okay, it's a really bad analogy, but it's you'll go them, you'll like it. But I think our thing is like we offer such great customer service most of the time. And I like to think we're pretty reasonable in like how we interact with customers, and I think for us, a lot of customers kind of see that, and that's kind of like the main thing that they like to kind of shop with Urbancred, because they know that they'll get like a really good customer service. They'll get like feedback right away. Like I run, sometimes our team runs 24-hour customer service. So whenever, even at like middle of the night, you send us a message, we'll respond like within half an hour or like so. As long as we're awake, you know. So that's just like our thing. We try to differentiate ourselves from like some of the bigger competitors like Huckberry and or the brand themselves, because not to say it's bad, it's just they're limited in their capacity, but they excel in others. Whereas the same for us, we excel in some areas and we lack in others. So it's just kind of like that, you know, kind of situation.
For sure. I mean, yeah, everything in business is about resources, and resources are limited. So every brand has their thing that they specialize in, you know. Yeah. And I can imagine as a smaller sort of a startup for Urbancred, you know, focusing on building those relationships, having just phenomenal customer support. That's how you build that trust over time. Just like dating, like you said, and then you know, hopefully leads you up for sets you up for world domination in the near future.
We're going to war. Boom, boom. We're going
Bring it on, Rush Faster. Just kidding. We love Rush Faster.
Yeah.
I actually,
Don't hurt us.
That's one thing I love about this community too. Is like I think that, you know, there's so much growth, and I talked about this on the last few episodes. Is like there's a lot of potential competition here, but like also there's so much growth that I think when the tide rises, all the boats rise with it. And, you know, as Rush Faster gets bigger, then so does awareness grow for this amazing community. And so does then it just builds and it grows. And that rises Urbancred with it. So, you know, I'm all about making connections in the carry community and trying to just grow this as much as we can, because, you know, I just think that there's a lot of potential, and we're just starting off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because the business landscape is pretty cutthroat. It's a lot of, not to say Rush Faster is doing it, but there's a lot of like stepping on toes sometimes, especially in the like age of internet and like online ordering and shipping, things like that. But I do still think that I like to see it as there's no need to be like douchebags to each other. Like you can still be like friendly. Like if I think if Greg reached out to me and we spoke, we hung out, like I think there's ways to kind of benefit each other, like whether it's through events or like things like that, or like share resources. I think there are ways to be able to kind of support each other. And I spoke with the guys at Bag Creature too. They congratulated us, and then it was very nice of them to see that, see that kind of support, even though they're from a different like area. So I want to say ideally it would be nice to be able to like, you know, reach out to founders and communicate and then support each other, but it's also realistically it's still like pretty business landscape wise. So
you know, it's still business, of course, at the end of the day, you know. But I just like that we can, you know, chat about this, you know, like if I open a Nomads Nation store in Brooklyn, like, you know, we still gotta be cool, Edward, all right? Unless we're going to war.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Well, listen, dude, this kind of, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with my journey, you know, in all this. I know what I'm drawn to with retail, but I try to be more conservative with my business endeavors. And not really, because FIRO was quite a big risk in a lot of ways, but there's something about signing a 12-year lease for rent that then alarm bells are ringing for me, right? So I pick and choose my risk, and I think that's what we have to do in business, right? And you pick and you picked and choosed your risk as well. But there's just something about it that's always appealed to me, and I mean, who knows? Maybe our paths will cross again in this perspective, and we'll definitely stay in touch, and I'll keep picking your brain on retail.
Yeah. So you heard it here, guys. Nomad Nation store opening 2025. Let's do it.
Oh God, dare to dream. Need a bit more capital before that happens. But yeah, man, we'll see how it goes. But Edward, you know, before we go, anything else you want to chat about or plug?
If you guys are interested, we are at urbancred.com. That's our web store. Again, we're launching our retail in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, New York City, September, August. So if you ever come by, definitely come visit. If you're in the neighborhood during that time, we'll probably do a fun launch event. We'll be happy to see you there. And you know, we just started our YouTube channel, and then we also we have a podcast as well, which I might ask Aaron if he's free to come on that and return.
Count me in. Let's
Oh,
go.
it's a date. Yeah, forget Tinder. But yeah, and then glad to be on this podcast. It's great.
Awesome, dude. Well, Edward, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone who's listening, thank you so much for listening. Like Edward said, urbancred.com. It's a really cool site. I love what you guys are doing. I'm looking forward to chatting again soon, Edward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, and chat soon.
Peace.